Spinning. Hey,
Hey,
we're live again. We're live again. We just did an episode, but we switched places because we like this way better. So we should. I didn't time that very well. I just didn't time it very well.
now you're over on this side.
I know. Oops. Yeah. So, welcome everyone to the Real Investing Show. My name is Stephen Earp with my illustrious co-host, the great Taylor Davis from Norman, Oklahoma. Taylor, how are you?
I'm good, man. I love
Good.
that the great was added to me. That's usually like Alexander, you know.
You and Alexander.
I'm there. I've arrived.
Taylor the Great, Alexander the Great, John the Baptist, Winnie the Pooh, all have the same middle name. That was my dad joke. That was my dad joke for the day.
You got it in there.
I know. Well, Taylor, why don't you let everyone know what we talk about on the Real Investing Show, and maybe a little bit of an intro to our topic here, and I'll let everyone know who's watching live with us to post their comments.
Yeah. So as always, we're talking about real estate investing. We want to dive into different options and different things. We love taking people that maybe they're brand new or they just have a couple of rental properties or real estate investment experience, and they're really wanting to take it to that next level. So we try to have a lot of easy ways to get into the business, but also to scale up, because that's where we're at, is in the scale up process. So today we're both a decade and a half in each into this, and so we want to talk about how do you learn? Where do you get your education? There's a lot of options out there, and coaching, mentor programs, real estate courses. How did you get your education? How did you learn what you learned? And what would you do differently? So, Stephen, you started into this earlier than I did, and you were well ahead of the game when I met you. Talk to me about, how did you initially get started? Where did you start learning?
So first of all, I way back in the day when I was a kid, my grandparents were involved. They were real estate agents, they were developers, they were involved in construction. And so I have several generations of my family that were builders and real estate agents. And my parents were not, but I have aunts and uncles. And so when I was growing up, I remember cleaning out rental houses for my grandma and my grandpa. And when I was a teenager, they taught me about getting creative financing from people, having people carry the note, how to screen tenants, how to get rid of cockroaches.
Your first mentor were your grandparents.
Yeah, they had, I don't know, 40 or 50 rental properties, and it was all on the side. They managed them all themselves, and a lot of them they managed long distance. They just they were grinders, man. They were from that. They were born during the Great Depression, and they did everything themselves. Like, they would have a house go vacant, and my grandpa would like put on his old man coveralls and like go to work, man. I remember cleaning out houses where it was like, golly, some of the worst tenants on the planet, and like just filth, and he would just dive right in and he would grind on it for 16 hours a day to get it ready for the next tenant.
Wow.
And so that was at first, and then and they used to pay me like $1 an hour to help them or something, And then when I got married when I was 17, and I don't recommend that, but it worked out well for us. And I made a connection with my aunt, who was also a real estate. She was an agent for a long time. Then she owned a mortgage brokerage, and I worked for her for a while, working on some of her properties, and worked for several other investors doing construction. I did ceramic tile, and I did make readies and all that kind of stuff. And during that season, I ended up buying my first house when I was 19. So I was just kind of in the trenches.
So real quick, I want to ask a couple questions. So what age were you helping clean out these houses and everything with your grandparents?
Golly, 10 years old, maybe 8 years old. When I was old enough to take out the trash, I was helping them.
Okay. And how many grandkids did they have?
Uh,
They have a bunch, or
oh gosh, maybe 16 or 17.
okay. So were you the one that kind of latched onto this more than others, or were they pretty intentional with everyone about trying to give them information?
Honestly, I don't know that they were that intentional about it. I think I just liked them,
Just
and
really like the
I
killing.
liked hanging. I like I liked hanging with them, and they would offer me a little bit of money here and there to do grunt work and haul off trash, and I was always willing, and I didn't mind sweating, and it was cool to get out of my house and get paid a little bit of money, and so yeah, I now that I think about it, out of my, because there were 16 of us grandkids. Um, I mean, there are probably four of us that have actually dabbled in real estate.
Okay.
Most have not. I have one cousin that's invested passively with me,
Okay.
another cousin that's bought and sold a little bit on the side. My sister and her husband have invested passively with me as well. So the rest of them really haven't, but that's kind of interesting. I never really thought about it, but they were, yeah, they were. I mean, I look at some property now in like South Oklahoma City and more that they used to own that's massively commercialized right now. And it's like, man, if they still were alive and they owned that property, it'd be like, golly, deca millionaires just on one property,
Wow.
And so yeah, the property all the way from, this area, but from 89th Street and I-35
Oh yeah.
all the way down to 89, all the way down to 27th. They owned like a half a mile of that right on the highway.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, and there's this little church there. You know the little church that's
A
on.
little tiny church. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. On
Yeah,
the west side of the road.
Yeah, my family built that in like 1979, and we had church there. And
Wow.
it was on my grandparents' land, and there was a house right next door to it. My grandparents lived in that house, and they had a real estate agency there as well.
Wow.
But they owned all the way to the corner, and now it's like, I don't know. It used to be a Hardee's back in the day, and then now it's like a little strip mall or something. But it backed up to that golf course that's now going to be New Catholic Cathedral or something. But yeah, really,
that's cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to point out real quick is like, it's funny that you recognize them as your first mentor and kind of given that, but there's what, at least 11 grandchildren that would not feel that way, right? Like that they don't look at that as a they wouldn't say this was my mentor and this is how I got to where I am. And I just want to say that because I think that people that are looking for advice, people are looking for information, sometimes it's just like, it's literally right there. And it doesn't have to be some big course or whatever. Sometimes you've got people that are in your life already that will teach you or have already taught you if you just kind of wake up to it.
Yeah, that's interesting because for me, so here's what I think might have been different. Any environment I've been in, I automatically thought, this person's doing that, and if they can do it, there must be money in it. And if there's money in it, I can figure out how to do it and make money too. Right. Like I automatically thought that. I mean, I remember when I started my working journey, I was working for a carpet layer. I was a carpet layer's helper, which is very it's a very glamorous job. So like carpet layers spend their lives on their hands and knees on the floor. I'm the guy that cleans up the nasty stuff before they come in, right? That's what I did. And I was like, if this guy can do this, I can do this too. And so then I kind of got started in doing remodeling and stuff. But yeah. And I mean, I remember working with these investors. I was doing make readies with my aunt, and she would tell me that she would give me their criteria. She's like, this guy, his criteria is to buy in this area for this price at this level. And if he can make this much cash flow and pay him off in 15 years, that's what he wants. And he wants as many like that as he can. And I remember him showing up on the properties, and if we can fix something instead of replace it, he was all in. And so we figured out how to, like, those old school wooden windows. We figured out how to reglaze them
Yep.
and like put the new points in them and repair the wood to where they would work. And he was so happy. He was like, he said, you just saved me like $47 per window. I mean, it was like that. And he was really happy. And I was like, great. Instead of $3.50 an hour, maybe you can pay me $3.75 an hour. Yo, you know, I mean, it was like that. I don't remember. It was like minimum wage was like $5.25 back then. And he was paying me something like that. But yeah, that was a long time ago. Man, I'm old, bro. I'm old.
Minimum wage was $5.
Yep. Yeah, some other mentors up the road, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so let's go to the next one. So you grandparents are your first mentor. You buy your first house at 19. Who's your second mentor? Where did you start to go, okay, now I'm really going to scale this. I'm really going to learn this skill set.
So I started working with my aunt after I got married, 17, 18 years old. My grandparents helped me, coached me through buying my first house. So I kept learning from them and from my aunt until I was about 23, 24. Then fast forward to about 2003, I would have been 28 years old. And I wanted to get more involved. Maybe it was 2004, something like that. And I found a local guy here, and his name was Pat Poynton. And he ran one of the local real estate meetups, and he also had what he called a millionaire mentor weekend. And he had an RV, and he did 2 of these a year. And the reason was he wanted to write off the cost of his RV. And so he charged $1,000, and he gave me a discount because he liked me, because I was a preacher and he liked preachers. And he gave it to me for $800. And the weekend, it was Friday night, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. And he would take you in his RV, and you would go in, you would do like a classroom thing. He had this book he went through, and it was like photographed, like super thick, lots of content. And he and his wife would go through it. They would talk about rehabbing. They talked about, buying and and she was an agent. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we would go look at houses, and we would live look at houses. And it was like, he would show us exactly, if I bought this house, I would fix this and this and this and this. I would buy the materials at this place. I would pay no more than this price for it. I would rent it for this. I would And he was very specific. There was maybe 8 of us on this. And he gave us the opportunity to write contracts on these deals. And at that time, we were looking at REOs.
Yep. Wait, real quick. What's an REO?
Real estate owned. And what an REO is, real estate owned, means that a bank owns it. And it really is a line on their spreadsheet that this is their asset list. And it's called a real estate owned, REO.
So bank owned foreclosed properties is what.
Yeah. It's already been foreclosed. The bank already owns it, and now they're looking to go on the market. And back in the mid 2000s, they were dumping them. And so you could get lots of deals on the MLS through REOs. I probably bought 10 deals like that. But that weekend, what happened was he was looking at these houses, and there were 5 of them. He said, all right, here, guys, if you want to get in on a deal, I'm telling you, this is a deal. And I'm going to put a contract on it right now, unless one of the rest of you want to. And I put contract on the first 2 houses. And I said, nope, if you'll buy it, then I'll buy it. And I bought it. And I bought 2 deals that day. And he started calling me a shark after that. He was like, I've never met a preacher that was as sharky as you. And
he's like, I want my $200 back.
Yeah. And he said, you definitely made your $800 worth on this course. So then I made friends with him, and we ended up doing wholesaling together. He taught me how to do subject twos. Like, he taught me how to do creative financing. I mean, I did tons of stuff with him. And that was before I met you. But then, I was still connecting with him some, but I was doing less business with him by the time you and I started working together. And then through the years, just buying different courses. But the courses I would buy courses that were, I would buy them used, like on eBay or.
Okay.
Instead of going because at the time I would go to these real estate events, and
they'd sell a CD package deal of 20 CDs, and it's an Audible and blah blah blah, but it was like $4,000, right? I mean,
Right.
like some of these were like really expensive, but I'm going to give you all the content. So then you're going on eBay and you're like XYZ real
It's
estate
$50.
investor, and you're getting
Yeah,
it for $50.
$100, $50. Yeah, and then
Somebody
I
just
found,
yeah, somebody dusted it off the shelf
yeah,
and was like, I got to get
yeah.
rid of this.
Yeah, and then also, so I did that several times. I learned a lot from Ron LeGrand back in the day. I learned a lot from a guy named, by the time Tim Mai came around, I learned a lot from him, and we're friends still today. Not close friends, but we, happy, healthy acquaintances. And so several of those guys in that era, and there were others. Robert Allen had some stuff and things like that. But then one of the RIAs here in town also would allow you to, they bought every course and they would let you check it out just like a library. And so instead of like buying all these high end courses, would do that. And so,
Right.
yeah. So that's how yeah.
So now I'm going to go of things that you paid for.
Mhm.
Okay. So what was the best money you spent and why?
The best money I spent for education, hands down, is the one I told you about, the Mentor Weekend with Pat.
Okay.
Hands down. And the reason, but here's the reason it was the best. Two reasons. Number one, it's because I took action immediately. And what that did, and that led to number two, I built a personal relationship with him long term because I took action immediately.
Yeah. So you said there were 8 people on that trip.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, just because I know how people are,
yeah,
you were the one that took action. The other one, other may have done something, and then the rest didn't do anything.
That's exactly right.
Or worse, they kept asking, "What should I do next?" I'm like, he did it. Like, do it. Like, take action.
Right. He literally walked you to the house, said, "Here's a contract. This is an incredible deal. I will buy this deal if you don't."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sign me up. Go find me another one now.
I love that he made it easy for you to take action too. It's a very actionable step. If you don't take this step, I will take this step.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's solid.
So I remember when we closed on it, he said, I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said or how he said it, but it was something, I'm going to give you the pastor version, but he basically said, dang it, Stephen, I really wanted that house and you bought it. I mean,
and good on him for like giving that as an opportunity, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But
so what about you? If you don't mind me ask you a few questions about mentors and courses you learned from, and then maybe after we talk through your journey, we can talk about the big picture of what do you think about courses? What do you think about hiring mentors? What do you think about coaches and things like that? So talk to me about your real estate journey. Who have you learned from? What courses have you learned from? Like, talk me through that.
Yeah. So we did not rehearse this, but my first mentor was you, right? That really, I mean, it really was. So in 2008, I knew I wanted to be in real estate investing. I knew that's where I wanted to go. But I got my real estate license and then we connected. And when we connected, I was like, man, this is a guy that's he takes action, which is a man after my own heart. And so you were very well educated and you turned me on to several books and I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. And I think that, for a good mentor-mentee relationship, you have to have the mentor that is willing to invest in someone, but that mentor, all right, if you want a great mentor, you have to be a great mentee. Is that the word? If you want to be a great mentor, you have to be someone that person values pouring into. The worst thing about being a mentor is when you pour into someone and you see nothing from it. And I don't mean that sounds selfish, but at the same time, when you're being a mentor, you want somebody that's taking action. You want somebody that's doing something that is like, oh yeah, you got it. You've got this going. And the one of the most that will suck the life out of you as a mentor is when you are investing and you're investing and they're not doing anything.
Right.
So if you want a great mentor-mentee relationship, you have to be a great you have to do that, what they say. You have to listen to what that advice is and move forward with it. So in 2008, I met you. You really started pouring into me. And then I'm learning all of these things. It felt like I was drinking out of a fire hydrant in 2009. Like between learning what a subject to was and how to wholesale and building a wholesale list and how to write offers that you didn't have to put a lot of money down or that you could turn around and assign. Like there's just so much that was happening. And I'm reading great books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and things like that. And that really set me up.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but I really went through a dry spell probably until 2015, probably from like 11 to 15, where I wasn't growing a lot. Like I didn't have I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have some of these things. But then actually in 2015 is when I got with Keller Williams and my perspective shifted on a lot of things. And I realized I don't know a lot of things and I need to grow. And so that's when I got a real estate coach and that was helpful. Now that was more for my real estate business, but
right.
I still think a lot of those concepts and a lot like of learning how to structure a business and like all of these things, that was so helpful even to my real estate investing career. And then there were a lot of free resources or inexpensive resources like millionaire reading books. Like you're getting, dude, read a book and then implement something from it. It's not hard. Like you don't have to spend $4,000 on somebody to tell you what's in a $15 book.
Right.
And Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a phenomenal mindset book.
Agreed.
And then there's other books, but then there's podcasts, much like this one. Like a podcast that was very influential to me was Bigger Pockets Podcasts. I still gain value from it. And I really like when you get to hear different perspectives from different people. So what I have found to be the best bang for my buck has actually been masterminds. And that's because you're getting in a room with people that are taking action on a regular basis, dealing with very similar issues, and quite possibly, and in most cases, are going to be a missing link for you. Because even you're not the best at everything.
Right.
But you're really good at some things. Right. And what I've found within masterminds is there's someone in this room, in a mastermind, there's someone in this room that knows what I need to know and they know it really well. And if I can figure out who that person is for whatever it is, that is going to help move my business forward. In addition to that, you're connecting and networking, and you're networking with people that are in a similar net worth in most cases, or kind of around that same, or at least going to that same trajectory. And so you may have a deal that doesn't work for you, but it works for somebody else, or vice versa. So there's opportunities in that room as well. So I love the idea of that learning and networking, right?
Yeah.
Combined. So for me, a mastermind has really been what I've found the most value in.
Now, can you maybe for the viewers and listeners, like talk about the difference between like having a mentor or having a coach or being part of a mastermind? And I mean, are those things you pay for? Are they, is it just gathering of people? Like talk to me about maybe some of that.
So, okay. So there's obviously different options. So let's just go down, one-on-one coaching. That's where you've got, somebody, and honestly, coaches aren't always producing at the level that you want to produce, but they may be an expert in that area, or they may really know how to get you to a certain place. So a one-on-one coach, they're there for accountability. They're there like in the same way that your coach pushed you in football practice or whatever sport you're in. They're not just there to be a resource for you. They're also there to be an accountability piece for you. So that's the bonus of having a coach. A mentor is usually not a paid position or a paid thing. There are some paid mentorships, but I would say that the most valuable mentorships that I've had, I've actually never had a paid mentorship, but I would say that some of the most value I've received have been from mentors. For example, like what did you get out of being my mentor?
I got a great relationship. Okay, initially, initially, what I got out of being your mentor was I got the satisfaction of helping someone who was really hungry and driven. And it was exciting and fun for me
Right.
because you were interested in learning the things that I know.
So I
And
gave
so
you energy to your knowledge. Your information gained energy.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, because like when you're excited about something, I mean, let's just be real. Most of the people that are close to you, they're just not as excited about things.
And
So
not
like,
this.
yeah, you learn
Unless
about
you're just surrounding yourself with real estate investors.
Yeah. So like what happens is in my world, it's like I figure out a new way to structure creative financing. And I'm like so excited because now I can do deals that I couldn't do before.
Right.
Nobody's excited about that. Like when you're talking about family and close friends or people at church or people in your, your kids' soccer team, like they're not like, oh, how exciting is that you found a new way to do a wraparound mortgage.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody's excited about that. So for one, it's just gratifying to say, I'm learning these things. Let me pass this on to you. The second thing I got was it's fulfilling to have someone actually taking action. And it's kind of the idea that like a long time ago, I thought, and this was probably by the time I was probably 30 years old, I was like, I want to get my name into as many people's stories as possible. Like, and then later I transitioned that some, but it's like, I want to invest so much and pass on whatever I have and whatever I can do. And my faith impacts that, but also just, I think it's practical. I think it's helpful for the world. I think the world's a better place because of it. So that's the second thing I got out of it. The third thing I got out of mentoring you is a mentor relationship is more informal than coaching. Mm-hmm. Coaching usually has action steps and targets.
Yep.
Mentoring is usually more like walking side by side. We ended up partnering together on lots of deals. We made a lot of money for a short time. And then the fourth thing I would say I got out of mentoring you is long-term relationship and network, because you're a high capacity expert in far beyond my capacity in many aspects of real estate. Just in the last program we did, the last episode we did was me asking you 1,000 questions about doing Airbnbs because I have not invested in an Airbnb. And you have a lot of experience there. So it's like, it's like the peer-to-peer experience now. Sure. Of like, we have a lifetime of trust and complementary gifts. And so anyway, those are, I think, the four things that I get out of it. And I would love to find more people to invest in like that, that are just going to actually take action. And it's like, I think high capacity people that know a lot in some area, most of them, maybe 100% of them that I know, would love to pass on what they know to others.
I agree with that.
They just find someone who's motivated, but most people just, don't do that. And so, good question.
Maybe. So real quick, I just want to go. So then you have going back to the original question of like describing this. So coaching has an objective and accountability piece. Mentoring is more of a relationship piece, and usually it's somebody that knows what they're doing and somebody that is willing to implement it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of that mentor-mentee relationship. And then the third, with a mastermind, this can look a little different, but when I say mastermind, I mean, I'm talking about a higher level mastermind. So there's an intent behind that mastermind group. Those are usually fairly expensive to be a part of because there is it creates a barrier to entry, which also creates this value proposition of everyone in this room collectively cares and is willing to invest and is willing to grow. And so you don't just get a lot of these fringe people that are not actually going to take action. And so that's what a good true mastermind would look like to me. But the free or the less expensive version are you mentioned it earlier, meetups, real estate meetups. Like there's all sorts of real estate meetups. Some of them are free. Some of them are really inexpensive. And you're going to be in a room. The difference between that and a high level mastermind is, in a high level mastermind, everyone in the room is doing something and has knowledge to bring. Where when you go into these real estate investor meetups, you may have 10 people that are really experienced and doing really well, and 100 people that are really curious and haven't done anything yet. Right. And be careful who you get your advice from too.
Yeah, I will say this. Let me just drop a couple of tips. One related to mentoring. I encourage you guys. We all should have mentors all the time. And a few things about mentoring is this. Number one, I recommend that you not just go ask someone, "Hey, will you be a mentor?" That's too big of a general ask. That doesn't mean anything. Instead, approach people that know something you don't, and ask them, "Hey, I'm just getting started, but I would like to just ask you a couple of questions. Can I have 10 minutes of your time or whatever?" Ask for something very specific, very small. You ask your questions, you get the information, you say less, you ask your questions, you let them do the talking, and then you after you leave them, send them a handwritten note that says, "Thanks so much for your time. I learned a whole lot. And by the way, I took action this way."
Boom.
And then you ask them questions again. And over time, if you do that and do that with multiple people, and then over time, you'll find yourself in an actual relationship, a personal relationship with some of them. If you just approach someone and say, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" They don't know you. They don't know what's this kind of commitment. What are you asking? What does that mean to you? It's too much. It's like you don't really know what it is. So instead, plan on learning from everyone and approach them like that. And over time, some of those will turn into relationships that end up being mentor type relationships over time. That's one recommendation.
100%.
Another thing I might say about you mentioned, I think it's a very astute observation that you mentioned about high level masterminds that you pay for are have great value. They normally have a barrier to entry of a cost, a high cost, but also, and I think this is even more important, is most of them have a filtering process where they're looking for people who are actually already successful to some degree in some part. So in other words, you're collaborating because you're cross learning from people. Yep. There's not a lot of value for you if you get in a room with 20 people that don't know what they're doing and 3 people that do. There's not value for the 3 people that know what they're doing. Like, I want to learn from people who know stuff I don't know.
Right.
And so there has to be cross learning. So that's something to keep in mind. And one more brief thing I might say about real estate meetups. What you said is so accurate. Watch who you're learning from. Tell me if you find this is accurate, Taylor. To me, in general, I find the people that know what they're doing, there might be a reverse correlation between how much they open their mouths and jack their jaws and how much they actually know.
Oh, yeah.
I find the people that talk the most usually know the least. And it's there's like the old guy sitting in the corner that's been doing it for 30 years and he knows everything and he is not going to you know what I mean? He's not going to be running his mouth.
I went to one of these local real estate investor meetups, probably starting about a year and a half ago. Actually, it was whenever COVID kind of, we started coming back from COVID, and I think it was the first one. So that was probably a year and a half ago. And go to this, and I met a handful of people, and I happened to meet one person that was there and a little bit more quiet. And he's a local investor, and I've now talking about a mentor. We have a mentor-mentee relationship. We go to lunch. It's very informal, yet we go to lunch on a regular basis, probably once a month.
Right.
And that guy, oh my gosh, dude! Like, that guy used to. I mean, he was the buy it, turn around and rent, sell it on a rent to own back in the day. You know, that strategy that was very popular. He did that up until like 2013. And then in like that year, he switched and commercial, and he sold all of his properties and moved to commercial. And he's been in the commercial space for a long time, does hard money lending now. And this guy has a wealth of knowledge in so many areas. He knows how to find a good deal. He lends money out. He is the person that everyone there wants to know. And I just happened to get to know him, but he was super quiet. He was not the person. When I was talking to him initially, I had no idea who he really was. Right.
Yeah.
And then as we got to know each other, well, fast forward, I'm on vacation last week in Mexico, and he texted me and he goes, "Hey, there's an opportunity in Norman you should look at." I'm under contract on 2 condos that he sent me, right? Because he didn't want it, but he knew it was a deal and he knew I would want it. And that's a great example of a of this relationship. And I remember the last time we went to lunch, I just said, Russell, what value do you, how do I provide you more value? He goes, man, you do it. Like just in doing
awesome.
things and having like, because I feel like, man, I'm taking so much from this like I'm learning so much. What can I give you? But I think it's sometimes just the energy. But yeah, you're 100% right. It's not the guy that's talking about the one flip that he did and how awesome he is at it. There's somebody in that room though. And that's the thing is you need to know what you're going after and then who you're really taking advice from. And it shouldn't be the nightly news.
So let's transition a little bit and talk about like maybe courses and things like that. When is it worth it? When is it not? It's a little dicey. I mean, I think the most value you can get is by going to these meetups. You happen into the right person. Talk to the quiet people. Find out what all they know. Be careful when you're talking to the people that just talk and talk and talk. And I want a bit of encouragement. I don't even know how to say this, but I remember because I used to help some of these course creators in the mid 2000s. I used to help some of them sell their courses, some of the like $15,000 mentor programs and stuff like that. 20 years ago, that was a lot of money for a mentoring program.
That's a lot of money now.
It's a lot of money now, but it was a whole lot then. And here's one thing that I learned at some of these events I used to help with. I remember being at one event and the key speaker said, there had to be 400 people in the room. And the key speaker said, if you've already done at least one real estate deal, would you just stand up? And there were no more than 10 people that stood up. And there were like 400 people in the room. And I was like, all right, because all these people in the room are there to learn how to do it, which is totally fine. But so many conversations were going on about strategies and stuff. And I was like, this room is filled with information junkies.
Yeah.
People who buy the book, buy the course, and never take action. The future is made by people who take action on what they know, not on people who take action to know things.
Right.
You take action on what you know, and that's how you change your future. And that's a big thing that I learned. Like, just take action.
Okay, 100% take action because you're going to learn more taking action than you're going to go through that course. Even if you were to go buy your first rental property right now and you overpaid for it by $10,000, you're still saving $5,000 in comparison to the person that spent that, and you'll learn more in that process. Now, I believe in the value of education, and education is very important. There is so much information out there that is free that no one needs to pay $15,000 to learn how to buy a rental property. Right. You can get a lot of information for free. Take action. It will pay off. And I don't know why people are comfortable paying $15,000 for a real estate course to learn how to do something. But if they weren't to make money on their first deal, they won't ever do it again. Like if you lost 15 grand on your first deal, but you learned something, you're a heck of a lot further down the road than you are otherwise.
I know. I heard this is something on one of the Bigger Pockets podcasts. You mentioned them earlier, so I throw some more love at them. One of the shows I had recently was talking about how, and I agree with this 100%, do at least 3 deals before you quit.
I agree with that.
I think it was David Green talking about it, and he's a prolific author now, but David Green was a police officer in Southern California, I think. But and they were talking about like do at least 3 deals before you quit, because it's your learning curve. You're not going to be wealthy by doing 1 deal or 2 deal or 3 deals. But if you do 3 deals, you can show that you can hang in there, because real estate is about the long term and it's about the learning. And so you have to be.
That's not sexy. People don't want to hear that it's the long term.
I know.
Right?
I know.
They want that money, right? That quick flip. That's what they want. Yeah. It is long term. Wealth is created in the hold. Wealth is created in the long term.
Yep.
This is not it should not be a 6-month plan for you. This is that's one of the things that I love about Rich Dad Poor Dad is it is about your financial education. Like
Yeah.
you are learning, you're constantly learning and feeding your financial education,
Yeah.
which is what will get you where you want to be.
Yeah.
It may not get you there in 6 months, but it will get you there.
Right. Right.
That's a lot less sexy than,
Make $1
put your
million
money in and you're
next
going to make $1
month.
million,
Yeah.
oh, the HGTV, I made 110 grand, on this one flip,
It only took me one 30-minute episode on
yeah.
cable.
Yeah. That was easy.
Yeah. Right. Well, good stuff. So we've talked about, go ahead.
We got a Q&A. So we need
Yeah,
to
we
do
do.
that real
So
quick.
just to wrap up, we just talked about mentors, coaching, masterminds, courses. Maybe to wrap it up, build relationships, learn from everyone you can. Over time, some of them can become mentors. There might be some value in hiring coaches if you get the right one at the right time and if you're going to take action. There might be some value in buying courses if you get the right one at the right time and you're going to take action. But really the key thing is to take action on.
Don't join a mastermind on your first deal.
No,
you're not to that level yet. You need to do some deals where you start seeing problems that aren't really easily solved.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's a good time to join a mastermind.
Totally agree. All right. Let's jump to some Q&A. We've been at this for 40 minutes. We've been talking about this topic.
I know.
So some Q&A. Let's try to do some Q&A. Maybe we'll go back and forth on some Q&A, get as many as we can.
Okay.
First question, Taylor. This question came from Don Manning, who was watching on our episode earlier. The question is, can you use equity in your home to buy an investment property?
Not only can you should. I've only done it on almost every deal. So that's the beauty of the way real estate works, is the ability to borrow against it that makes it so much more leverageable. And so what begins to happen is the more real estate you have, the more you can borrow because of this snowball. So it can start with, and it, in most cases, for most people that are getting started, unless you just happen to have a really large saving or investment account that you're able to go and buy something, you're probably going to be able, one of the easiest ways to get started is to borrow against your primary residence as a home equity line of credit. And you can borrow against the equity in your primary residence. And that could be your down payment, or potentially, depending on how much equity, all of buying your first rental property. Now you've got a paid off asset or an asset with more equity, and you can do that again and again and again and so on. So absolutely, that is the easiest way. And by the way, you can, when you flip a house, you get to pay taxes on all of that profit, right? So you buy it for 100, you put 50 in it, you sell it for 200, you made $50,000. Now you're going to pay taxes, income tax on that $50,000. Let's go about this in a different way. What if you did that same thing, but instead of selling it, you did a cash out refinance? That's not income. It's a loan. You can get money given to you where you get to realize the equity that you have, but you do it in a way that is tax-free because it's not income. It's a loan.
Yeah, good stuff. So I've got some other questions coming in. So Taylor, what let me do is, because I'm watching the comments, let me ask these questions to you, and we can cut these into Q&A that's with you. So, okay. So Rebecca Miller watching on Facebook says, can you borrow against the equity in your home if you don't currently have a job?
Probably not. Because they're going to look at your debt to income ratio. So they're going to need to see some kind of income. I don't know what your situation is. Like if you have other streams of income that you could do that, but that is going to be the key, is you're going to have a debt to income ratio. That we actually mentioned this on another podcast episode, is keep your W-2 job as long as you can, because it is so much easier to borrow money when you have a W-2 job as an employee than when you're self-employed. When you're self-employed and you write anything off, that goes against your income, and it ends up hurting you in the long run on borrowability.
Yeah. Good thoughts there, Taylor. We have another question on Facebook from Tina, who says, you guys talk about reading books about investing in real estate. What books do you recommend for someone just starting in real estate?
Okay. Rich Dad Poor Dad at the top of the list, and almost every real estate investor who's read that will tell you that. That's a mindset book, though. Another book that I would highly recommend is The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. That's written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, and it's not this. It is an easy pathway, very step by step, to being a millionaire by investing in real estate. If you want to be a little bit more aggressive, there are some other books that I would recommend. Long Distance Real Estate Investing is another really good book, and it's got a lot of practical information on how to hire the people that are essentially your team, your realtor, your property manager, your deal finders, your construction guys, all of that, and gives a lot of practical advice in there. And one of my favorite books, and it's not specific to real estate investing, but it is about negotiating, which is part of real estate investing, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Oh my gosh. Like, if you want to learn how to move somebody from where they are to where you need them to be through conversation, that book will absolutely help you.
Great. The only one I would add to that would be Cash Flow Quadrant.
In
the same series as Rich Dad Poor Dad. In my opinion, Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant kind of go together.
They do.
But yeah, I love all the books you've mentioned. So yeah, good stuff. So
we've played he's got the game Cash Flow.
Cash Flow
as a family, and that's a great game to like teach you how it works, because it's this kind of grindy game that's kind of boring for a while, and it's really slow, and then all of a sudden it starts getting faster and faster and faster, just like the real world.
Yeah, so if you can probably buy it on Amazon for
years
or something. But the Cash Flow game, I used to play that with my kids. That can teach you a lot about real estate, is playing the Cash Flow game.
Yeah.
It's a fun game too.
It is kind of like Monopoly, but it's actually like based in how economics work. Yeah.
Okay. Those are all our questions that we have on the live. Any questions? Any other questions?
I want to ask this.
Yeah.
What was the thing that you spent the most money on that you regret as far as education?
What did I spend?
Or did you ever buy a course that you're like, oh, that really wasn't worth it?
No, I was really cheap. So the question is, did I ever waste money on education that I wish I hadn't? I cannot think of anything that I've done that with. Okay, so the question is, did I ever spend money on an education or a course that I wasted or that I regret? First of all, no, because I was always a little too cheap, and I was very skeptical, and I didn't sign up for many of the high-end programs, number one. Number two, I'm very action-oriented, and so I take action if I sign up for something.
So even if you got a crappy course, but you took one piece away from it, you learned from it, and you moved forward, and it paid off.
Yeah. Now, I will say I've signed up for some education programs now within the last 12 months that I'm not taking as much action on as I wish that I was, but I'm about to remedy that, because I'm not going to lose my money by putting money into a course and then not taking action. So that's a great question. Really, really great question. What about you? Have you spent money on a course or coaching or mentoring that you felt like was wasted?
No, because same reason. No, I'm cheap, and I'll go with frugal. And
right?
I've been I'm very skeptical of who I learn from. Like, I want to know that you've done it to a level that I want to do it, and in an ethical way. And so, like, I've been a little bit more cautious. And what I've spent the most money on is a mastermind, and I've gotten a lot out of it. So, no, I would say that I've taken action and seen results. So it worked out. So,
yeah, good question. Any other questions come to mind?
Nope. I think that'll do it.
All right, guys, thanks for watching the show. Taylor, I love you, man. The future is bright, and please like, comment, and share the Real Investing Show. If you're thinking about getting involved in real estate, feel free to hit me up or hit Taylor up. Maybe we can help you in some way. We'd be glad to do that.
100%.
And follow us on all the channels. You can reach out to me personally, Stephen Earp or Taylor Davis. Thanks for watching The Real Investing Show. We'll get some more episodes out next week.